All right, welcome everybody to the TLC 10th anniversary. Woohoo!
Woo!
I really appreciate everybody being here and our panelists today. So let's start with some introductions. I mean, they don't really need introductions today. We have Lukas Vermeer. He is currently the Director of Experimentation at Vistaprint. Like I said, he probably doesn't need much of an introduction. Everybody knows
Vista, now we do more than print.
Yeah, they do. They do so much more. In fact, if you've ever gotten any TLC swag, it probably came from Vista. But his specialty is designing and building the infrastructure and processes required to start and scale A/B testing and to drive business growth. He combines industry experience and online experimentation and data science with an academic background in computing science and machine learning. And he plays an essential role in making A/B testing an integrated part of business processes. He's an advocate for accessibility of experimentation, helping people from any background, including product owners, designers, and developers and writers to make the right decisions. He's built experimentation cultures of excellence at Booking and is currently at Vistaprint, working with other award-winning experimentation teams, as we all know. And one of my favorite things about Lukas is his humbleness and willingness to help teams outside of the companies he's working with to build their own experimentation cultures. So thank you for being here, sir. Next up, we have Juliana Jackson. She's been in digital marketing for 13 years and she's done everything besides SEO, but in the end, she decided to stick to digital analytics and experimentation. And she's always felt that these two fields together make up what she's truly enjoyed doing as a technical marketing specialist. She started the Standard Deviation podcast in May of 2022, and she ran it on her own until 23 when she added Simo. She's also had an awesome blog, Juliana-Jackson.com, where she writes about technical marketing and shares old and new learnings from our wonderful and crazy field. Then third is Shanelle Mullin. I think everybody probably knows her from the wonderful stuff she does. Sorry, again, got to remove the cat. Shanelle is a Jill of all trades marketer with a 16-year background in growth. And by day, she's an experimentation analysis lead at Shopify, one of the fastest growing SaaS companies in history. And by night, she is an amazing freelance writer. You should really check out her amazing writings at ShanelleMullin.com. And she's a consultant in the conversion rate optimization space. And she was recently named one of the top experts in CRO. And Simo, we all know and love Simo. He is a recognized expert on customizing web analytics and tag management solutions to improve the entire life cycle of data collection, processing, and reporting. His main areas of expertise lie with Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. And, you know, Google has appointed him, like with a little crown, as a Google developer expert in all of those fields. And he's especially interested in communication structures within organizations and firmly believes that communication breakdowns are the underlying cause to practically all data-related problems. He's particularly invested in demystifying analytics development work, and his main focus is on increasing awareness, skills, and critical thinking around data and development. He's a partner and co-founder at 8-Bit Cheap, a digital services boutique, and he's also co-founder together with Merritt Aho of Simo, an online learning platform for technical marketers. And he's already mentioned, he's currently co-host of the Standard Deviation podcast with Juliana Jackson. And last but not least, meet your co-host, my dear friend, Merritt Aho. He's built or led testing programs at a wide variety of companies and consulting firms. He's all around an awesome good guy who solves everyone's problems while making it look super easy. He somehow manages to be technically savvy and understand statistics and strategy, and he's known for creating and filling awkward silences with truly terrible dad jokes, which I hope we will all benefit from today. His current job title, if you haven't noticed it on LinkedIn, is probably my favorite of all time, Loading. And you can check him out on both LinkedIn and Twitter. So let's get started. I'm going to turn off our screen share so we can get started on our conversation here. I didn't do it right. Chat, no. Anyone? Stop share. Here we go. All right, there's your beautiful faces. So our first topic is the shifting Google Techscape, which is so easy to say. Thank you so much, Tim Wilson, for putting that topic out there. And I want to start by saying, number one, Tim Wilson, Matt Gershoff, and June Dershowitz, who couldn't be here today. Thank you for helping me plan this event. You guys did an amazing job. Love you. The Google Techscape. Where do we want to start with this conversation? Panelists. If we look at the poll,
yeah, looking at the numbers, like, looks like the people don't care.
It looks like they don't care about Google Optimize, but it's changed dramatically since we first said it, and it may be biased by the people who took the poll. Obviously, it looks like they don't care about Google Optimize, but they definitely care about.
So, to what extent do you expect the sunsetting of Google Optimize to impact your day-to-day work? 4 said quite a bit, 4 said somewhat, and 13 said not at all.
Right.
So no one's sad that Google Optimize is gone.
No one's sad.
Or no one's sort of comfortable saying that they're sad that Google Optimize is gone.
Who said they're kind of sad?
I'm kind of sad about it.
You're kind of sad. Why are you sad?
I hate it when they take our free stuff away. No, I mean seriously. You can be of very many opinions about Optimize, and I'm like factually know that it's not the best tool out there. But as an entry point into a very complicated industry, having something that doesn't require you to dish out enterprise budgets or to talk with salespeople can actually be pretty cool. And I guess that for many people, especially practitioners or who consider themselves to be practitioners today, might have gotten their feet wet in experimentation with Optimize or content experiments before that. So in that way, I think it's a huge shame. It doesn't answer the poll question. I'm sad that Optimize is going away. It absolutely does not impact my day-to-day work that it's going away. But as a phenomenon that we are losing access to it, it's sad, and it's kind of unsettling from the point of view of a community that needs more people to join and be excited about experimentation without having to worry about budgets or vendor bias or huge enterprise contracts, for example.
I mean, they had huge markets here, right? At some point, they had like 50+% of the entire market, which is crazy. Was that only because they're free? Or is there other redeeming factors?
It's also, I think...
Matt Gershow was like, vendor bias. Come on, Matt.
Yeah, Matt has the annoying habit of picking like 2 random words I chose in one away. Now
Please show your face.
Oh, come on, Matt. Come on.
There's a lot of vendor bias at Google. That is true. Like Matt has this other annoying quality, which is that he's often right, and by often I mean pretty much always. I do think there was vendor bias for Google. I think this was a way for them to sort of lock people into their ecosystem.
For sure.
I'm actually curious what they're going to do next. Like, have they announced a follow-up yet? They haven't, right?
Yeah, I think the official party line that they've now talked about in documentation is that they are not going to, at least the public, the party line is that they're not releasing another A/B testing tool. They are improving integrations with GA4 for other tools to work with. And I think they've released the initial set of tools. Maybe it was A/B test in Optimizely, maybe?
MVW.
Okay. So
there's multiple.
A lot of fresh blood in the market.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that they want GA4 to be a front end for that stuff, or at least
neither of those are as affordable.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Nowhere near as affordable, and they're also screaming over the fact that there's this issue with the hyperlog log issue in GA4 for analyzing experimentation data. So
yeah,
dude, I mean, is Google suggesting that you're going to use GA4 for reporting for experiments, or are you going to use Optimize your VWO or whatever?
Yeah, I think the pitch there is that if you want to use GA4 to surface experimentation data, you do it with other experimentation tools.
Yeah.
But I don't think even they are so diluted that they expect people to take GA4 as the new reporting interface for the A/B testing tools they've been using for a long time. I think the pitch is that you can use, maybe build audiences with that information.
And then use
for whatever you need audiences for.
Yeah.
But then in the free tier, is there anything left then? Like what if you want? Because I agree with Simo, right? I think the greatest thing that Go did for the market was sort of have a very easy entry for people to enter the market. What's left then?
I think VWO is kind of at the more accessible end of the spectrum, but to your point, even that is way off of, a small company looking to like get their feet wet in experimentation. It's still pretty inaccessible depending on the size.
We would be remiss if we didn't honor those TLC participants who are now on the call, who work in experimentation software. There are open source tools out there. One comes to mind, Growthbook. I haven't implemented it. There are also very low cost, very robust enterprise tools out there. I'm not going to say the lowest cost, but very affordable, Conductrix. And let's see, do we have anybody else who needs a shout out here? Because there's lots of great tools, and it's going to depend on what your needs are, what your technical capacity for. But what I am curious about, because Simo, you mentioned that Google made it easy for people to do this. Should they have made it easy for people to do this? I mean, we know it's a two-edged sword, right? That, yeah, lots of people could get into A/B testing, but it also sort of wrecked A/B testing in a lot of different ways. Set up anybody who knows how to do A/B testing who comes in afterwards, give them a big mess to clean up in a lot of organizations, from the expectations point of view through to the technology point of view and the measurement point of view. So I don't think it's all great.
It's the same as with GA. Google Analytics, people use it and people think that it's an analytics tool. It's the same thing. And now there's such a huge mass of users that they are actually converting an entire industry to thinking that way, just simply because there's so many of them. So I think that in a way, like from a cynical point of view, I kind of agree that it maybe there are some things that shouldn't be that easy. But I'm right now, like this has been bugging me to no end, but I'm looking at our communities right now, communities around analytics and around data. And it seems that with the sunset of Universal Analytics, and I'm not sure if the same is with the sunset of Google Optimize, but it just looks like those communities are losing a lot of what made them fun. New people coming in saying, I just learned how to do this really cool thing. And now it's like, GA4 is the world's biggest customer support forum right now. That's what the communities are. People are excited about fixing bugs. They're not excited about creating new things. So I'm kind of worried that losing something like Optimize, which to the best of my knowledge actually worked, like it did what it was set out to do, which was to split people into groups and then, show stuff to them. This is my very academic description of A/B testing. And it seemed to work and it brought new people in. And I think that even if some of these people then have a very misguided understanding of what experimentation actually is, and especially experimentation culture, which I think is very important for people, I still think it's a net positive just to have people enter these communities and then have old timers and more experienced people hopefully guide them.
I'm actually quite torn on that, because it reminds me of a conversation I had a long time ago about PHP. Is that still around? So the good thing about PHP is you don't need to know anything about object-oriented programming to write something in PHP. The bad thing about PHP is you don't need to know anything about object-oriented programming to write something in PHP. And that means that most of the software in PHP, even though it's like from a programmer's perspective, you can write pretty good software in it if you know what you're doing. Most of the actual software that's out there is terrible because it's written by people who don't know what they're doing. And I think on the one hand, I understand the argument that having sort of this low entry, cheap tool that brings more people into the market is a good thing. It is also a bad thing, right? And I find it very difficult to sort of strike that balance between those two.
Yeah,
especially like you mentioned, like are they sort of coming in with the right mindset? Are they coming in with the right culture? Are they coming out with the right understanding of what this thing can be?
What's
I
the
think-
I sound like a gatekeeper
Because you
now. I don't
can,
want to be a
you
gatekeeper.
should.
I think also though, like I think the group that I'm more worried about is kind of the people who are paying thousands of dollars a month to also misunderstand experimentation. So I think there, I think it can go
Very
both
good
ways.
At least you're paying for the pleasure.
To be misled by,
Good point.
complexity.
Like
Ouch.
gatekeeping is yeah, that's actually a good yeah. I wouldn't want to. I don't know. It's tough. I fall in the line of never gatekeep and just looking for the net positive there. But maybe there is a phenomenon, especially the experimentation crowd, with that Google Optimize somehow did bring this type of crowd in. I don't know. It's interesting.
I'm also not a fan of gatekeeping. I'm also not a fan of handing out chainsaws to babies. Right there, somewhere between those extremes, there's a balance. And I
So
just
how
don't
much
know.
data do
I
you
think it's
have?
very fuzzy. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's not like you started out with a fact, Simo. You said the fact is it's free, or was free. And I think that was a very important fact.
And it
I
got a
think
lot
the
of
rest
people
is
excited. You
fuzzy.
can't deny that. It got a lot of people excited about
Yeah.
being able to experiment, to be able to run split tests. Whether or not they were doing it correctly, it begs the question. But to Shanelle's point, a lot of people were paying a lot of money for other tools and still weren't doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, fair.
yeah. So, the question maybe is, I don't know about you all, but at least in the experimentation space, and I think the same is true in the analytics space, because I know we've still had many arguments, debates, educational opportunities. There we go. With folks about, what is a meaningful metric, or what they should be measuring, or what data matters, or what dashboards they should care about, or what we should measure on a page, or what data privacy means, and all of that stuff related to analytics. And the same is true on experimentation, and why, if you're doing frequent statistics for testing, you need to plan before you launch a test and know you really can't peak. And if you're doing sequential, how to do it safely. And all of these things, all the education required is necessary depending on the type of testing you're doing. And I think that's true whether the tool is free or really expensive, and whether it's an easy or really complex test.
So you're basically saying it created teachable moments.
I think so.
And because it was free, it created more of them.
It created a lot more of them. And just because it's sunsetting doesn't mean that those teachable moments are gone. I think it just means that, okay, we all need to roll up our sleeves and take the opportunity for all of the people who now need a new platform to say, okay, you got really excited, and now you might need a new way to make decisions, better decisions with data, but that doesn't mean that you now stop making decisions. Now's your opportunity to make better decisions more intelligently. Let me show you how. Unlearn what you have learned.
It does sort of increase the friction, right? If it's a free and easy to use tool, there's less sort of barrier to getting started, and so there are teachable moments sooner. Whereas if I first have to dish out lots of money, there might be fewer opportunities. The flip side is there needs to be someone to teach. I think this is the risk in this strategy, right?
That's
if you don't
what
have
you
someone actually to give
are.
feedback, or there's no attention
are
being
the
paid to
teachers.
feedback, right?
Yes. That's
I
the
have similar thoughts about using velocity as a metric. And Flavio, who's on my team at Vista, he's on the call. Hey, Flavio, we've had this we have this discussion many times where we actually use experimentation velocity, so number of tests, as an internal metric, but not for the teams that are running the tests, very deliberately not for them.
Right.
It's a metric for the team that is enabling experimentation.
Sure.
And we're using it as a metric because on the one hand, it gives us a sense of reach. So how many of teams are we actually reaching, and how many teams are able to set up experiments? It gives us a sense of friction and efficiency. So how quickly can they set up experiments? And we do believe that if there are more experiments, there are more teachable moments. And so at some point, if you get sufficient velocity, then you can also start ramping up quality because you have more opportunities to educate. And I think it's very difficult to do it the other way around. If you start sort of pushing on quality when there's only 2 tests, the only thing that you're going to end up with is gatekeeping and saying these 2 tests are bad, and then everyone's going to not like you and walk away. And so I think there's this argument to be made that you do need some velocity at least before you can start pushing on quality. But it is, I think, a subtle balance. We were going to talk about universal analytics actually, but I've been
We have 5 more minutes. So let's
Yeah, it's just gonna bum us out. Let's
Me
not
and
go to
Simo
GA4.
Me and Simo are ready to go about GA4. Just-
There's a lot of teachable moments with GA4 coming up. So
yeah, that's why I installed Urchin the other day. I'm kidding. I'm not. It's funny. But one thing I would add to the optimize thing, I have a lot of enterprise clients that use optimize because this is the way the experimentation team could sell to the stakeholders that they will do experimentation because the tool was cheap. So that was like their gateway into experimentation and building the team. So a lot of my clients are enterprise, and that's what they were using before. So now, because they trained their leadership that the tool should be cheap, it's very hard for them to sell the value of actually using a good tool inside their organization. So I think also there's a lot of education needed on this, in my opinion, to help teams educate their own leadership about experimentation. So I've seen a lot of, I guess, demand from this type of enterprise companies towards a lot of agencies, not just media monks, for training into how to teach their leadership. What is a test? What is A/B testing? It's very basic stuff. What is how do you experiment? How do you design an experiment? So that's like the other thing of Google Optimize that was cool. It was because it was helping people in these very big companies just like ease their way in. Now the downside to that is just that now it's very hard to sell the value of a tool. That's all I have to add to that.
Yeah, spot on. I think both for analytics and for Google Optimize, I think these are both fields where teaching by doing is a lot easier than teaching by explaining. So running a test and then explaining the results is a much better way of sort of having someone understand the power of A/B testing than sort of telling them, right, so we flip a coin for every visitor. It doesn't really sort of help people understand. And so teaching by doing is a very powerful method, and the same goes for web analytics. And so having these tools available for free creates opportunities to do that for stakeholders who don't yet see the value. Yeah, totally right.
Any last comment on UA sunset before I give it Merritt?
good riddance.
Good.
I was going to say, should we do like a moment of silence, but then geez, that was hard. It's too soon.
Lukas, I've got something better than a moment of silence for Google Optimize.
Oh no.
On the sunsetting of Google Optimize and Universal Analytics, whether you've tried the tools or not, whether you care or not, at the end of the day, it's night.
Something should be
I'll be
sunset.
honest, Merritt, it's a bit of a downer.
Yeah.
We go on to something fun.
Yeah, let's do a drawing.
Let's do a drawing. Door prize.
Door prize.
Start with the let's draw 2 industry leader coffees, please. Merritt.
Who are the coffees with? You get a choice here, right?
You get a choice, and you do not have to let us know your choices now, although you can direct message me if you want. But I will email you to follow up on your choices. They're in your choices of industry leaders are in the email invite. But your choices are, Merritt, you want to list out the names? Because I don't have that invite open.
I got it.
Yes.
Gary Angel, Juliana Jackson. I don't know who this guy is. Merritt Aho.
That's you,
Lukas
sir. That's you.
Vermeer, June Dershowitz, Tim Wilson, Shanelle Mullin, Matt Gershoff, Kelly Wortham, also present, Michael Helbling, Simo Ahava, or Ton Westling. So you get your choice of any of those folks. And getting the randomizer going here. Beep, bop, boop.
Beep, boop, 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 boop.
Jeffrey McIntyre from Bucket Studio.
Congratulations. So Jeffrey, if you're on the TLC Slack, I hope you're on the TLC Slack. I need you to send the email address you want us to use to Merritt and I on the TLC Slack, please. Just direct message us. Are you here?
He's here.
He's here?
I am. Yep.
Woohoo, congratulations. So
Thank you very much.
You're going to get a TLC coffee mug, a e-gift card to a coffee shop, and a 30-minute coffee with your choice of industry leader.
Oh my goodness. I feel so bad I haven't been attending more regularly. This is the inducement I needed. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Welcome. Absolutely. Next up.
Second winner, Liz King.
Liz.
Woohoo, I'm here.
Awesome. Same thing. Send us the email address you want us to connect with, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
By the way, we have 6 more virtual coffees we're giving away and 3 larger prizes.
3 grand prizes that we'll do later on today. So stick around.
Must be present.
Right. Must be present. Congratulations, guys. So next up, shall we talk about the crumbling cookies? Everybody wants to talk about cookies.
There's so many bad jokes to make about cookies.
So many bad jokes about cookies. Crumbling cookies. All right, so let me go to the answers to, no, that's the personal information poll. Where's the other one? Did a human even create this poll? Cookies are crumbling. Let's see, what do we have? We have nobody's thrilled about it. 2 people have that it triggered an ongoing sense of existential dread. That's hard for me to say. As a consumer, I love it. As a marketer, I hate it. That's 4 people. 7 people said my feelings on this subject are too complicated to boil down to pithy responses, which leads to our complicated open-end statements. So let's share screen and read those complicated open-end, shall we?
I feel like we could spend all our time talking about just one of these.
I know, right? Don't have many feelings about it, to be honest. Not going to destroy marketing, not going to rescue consumers, just creating disruption and changing the game, maybe for the better. Who's to say? My sense is that the ability for marketers to execute with similar capabilities to what they have now will not change too much, just different hoops to jump through for certain capabilities. Okay, IOW. Guys, I'm not hip.
In other words,
thank you. Lucas used
Iowa
in internet speak, I noticed. In other words, people much smarter than myself have already started figuring most things out. There's so much to know and then it keeps changing, feels hard to keep up. I'm ambivalent. Cookies were never a reliable way of persisting identity, and the eradication of first-party layer for ephemeral storage is something that's been going on for years. Authentication for more robust identifiers, modeling to fill data gaps, and utilizing shorter time windows for ad hoc analysis is the way.
What a bunch of nihilist negative Nazis.
That was my response. How dare you?
Sorry, Simon. I wasn't referring to this particular one, but the whole series is all like, geez,
broadly, external user IDs should make requirements for cookies obsolete already. Perhaps some solutions will need make some tweaks to catch up, but something like Cloudflare Worker to deliver code and wrapped up in a KV lookup should allow you to make assignments or persist user information globally. It'll be pain to update everything, and perhaps some tools were super cheap to run won't be anymore, but there's clear solutions already. So this potential doomsday thing doesn't hold much water. Nice. Bit of a narrow focused view based on experimentation in dev tech, but it just doesn't feel like a big deal. What's next?
It does beg the question where the external IDs are coming from.
Yeah, I have a well actually approach to this question, because I feel like it's conflating a lot of different things. Yes, I need the glasses thing. There's no it's just no prescription. It's just for this. Yeah. So this question kind of conflates many different things, and I wasn't really sure what was being asked, because the third-party cookie for sure is on its way out, but I haven't really heard anything about the first-party cookie being expelled. And you still see almost on a daily basis in Measure, Slack, and LinkedIn, people asking now that third-party cookies going away, what's happening with Google Analytics? Well, GA doesn't use third-party cookies, so not very much. And then there's first-party storage, and then there's consent, which isn't technically taking cookies away, but it's adding a barrier to access them. So in a way, I wasn't exactly sure what the question was about, but my nihilistic answer was more about what Apple did with intelligent tracking prevention back in the day when they first started eradicating third-party cookies, actually in 2003 already with the first Safari version, and then later with the first-party cookies. I think they just kind of put into writing something that's been going on with all browsers. We use different browsers, we use incognito modes, we jump between devices, and this notion, especially in analytics, that a user somehow represents a single individual human being has always been kind of misguided. And I'm kind of wondering, I'm not sure if people have written that much or measured it actually that much, but there was a huge apocalyptic thing with ITP 2.1 where we no longer have a user in GA, for example, simply because first-party cookies are now 7 days maximum expiration. And I'm not sure anything really came of that. I think people still use analytics tools really bad. They used them bad before, and they still use them really bad. I don't think that particular thing changed it that much. So what I'm aiming at here is there is certainly more unreliability in first-party storage due to regulation and due to how browsers function, but does it actually impact the types of analysis that most people who use these tools that are considered to be most vulnerable to this actually do on a daily basis? I guess that is pretty nihilistic, actually, now that I come to think of it.
In one of the answers as well, sort of this idea of have marketers been collecting too much personal identification, too much personal information to begin with? Do we actually need this level of detail?
Which makes this topic and the privacy topic really closely linked.
Yeah.
Those are very different questions, at least from what Simo posed. I feel like if you take for as a given that attribution data is already crap, then yeah, maybe the impact is not so much, because it was just the illusion of accuracy that we had.
Which can be nice.
No,
Illusion of accuracy.
If as long as you're consistently wrong, it's okay to be wrong. I think that's the approach to analytics. Yeah, but that's what analytics is. We work with incomplete data. As long as that data is consistently incomplete. The problem is,
that's what analytics is.
No. A lot of our statistics relies on being inconsistently incorrect. We want just as much error on one side as we want error on the other side. So that on average, our estimates are still dead on, right? That is how a lot of this works. So we definitely don't want, if we have a two-tailed distribution, we don't want all of our measurements to be on one side. At least we're consistent. No, we want them to be wrong in one direction just as often as wrong in the other.
Inconsistently incomplete. That's a double negative, right? So
it's perfect.
Like I'm just saying. And then one interesting point here is what consent mode is doing, whether you like it or not. It is Google's approach to this. So they recognize that first-party cookies and first-party identities are no longer, or the pseudonymous identifiers that we're using in storages, they're not reliable anymore. So then they're using, black box ML to fill in the gaps, like training data with the people who do give consent. Of course, that just talks about consent. It doesn't talk about the fact that the people who give consent also have inconsistent, incomplete first-party identifiers. So the training data itself might be just as kind of lousy as anything else. But is that an interesting approach? Like, what do you guys think? Does that work? Like, is ML that like filling gaps with training data?
Well, I mean, ML is a hip term, right? But I think a statistician would call it imputation. Basically, you're imputing values. You have missing data. You want to guess what they are. So use sort of the data that you have to guess what data is missing.
What were you going to say, Shanelle?
And machine learning is often used, yes.
I was just going to say that I definitely subscribe to the camp of like, we have the average marketer has more data than they know what to do with. And I think we're so aggressively still struggling to get the fundamentals of data collection and analysis right, that sometimes I just feel like the hyper focus on cookies and the data that we're losing feels like more of a distraction than anything. But that's a hot take. I don't know if everyone feels that way.
Oh, I do feel exactly like that. I think we're very obsessed with metrics to justify what we're being paid for, but nobody actually spends time to understand, context. And I speak a lot about context. And I spoke, if you remember, Kelly at Super Week about this. Like, we're so desperate to track everything about whatever the fuck is going on the website. We collect that data in a warehouse in a Google sheet and we let it die there because nobody fucking touches that after. Like, this is the constant. So I have two opinions. One, as an analyst, I'm exhausted with consent mode implementation, and Simo gets to hear that sometimes when we have calls and we do the podcast and when I complain about my day. So from an implementation perspective, it's very hard to, first of all, to do it and to make sure it collects data properly, because consent mode affects everything that you collect, like on the website. Ideally, if you install it right, it will affect your data collection. Secondly, is you have to educate your clients about this. Clients don't care. If you're in Europe and you have clients that are living in UK, they, for instance, track analytics cookies as essentials. Analytics cookies are not essential for countries where GDPR exists. So outside, we have a little Brexit going on in Europe. But yeah, so like that's the part as an analyst. And as a marketer, I think, again, we are very obsessed with identifying everything about our customers, but we are not focused on understanding behaviors and what people are doing. From this point of view, I do like GA4 because it's focused on events. So actual, user actually doing something versus in UA, where you would just open a website and you blink 3 times and you have promo impressions, clicks, interactions, and you do nothing. So I do appreciate the event-based type of data model that GA4 has. But yeah, I think, Kelly, back to what you said earlier with the metrics, I think if people would spend more time asking themselves better questions and try to see where they could find that information and what they would do once they have that information, because that's my problem with marketing. We want to track different KPIs, but nobody asks themselves, okay, so if I have this KPI, what will I do with it? What is the outcome of this
data?
Yeah. How to change my behavior.
Yeah, like that's my my hot take. So I'm with you, Shanelle, and also with Simo, because but thanks to Simo's article about consent mode and GTAG, I've survived implementation so far. Yeah.
I hear a lot of that sentiment expressed, like, what are you going to do with the data if you have it? And I'm largely in agreement with that, but I will say, having been through the trenches of doing a lot of analytical work, sometimes it's really difficult to predict where an insight is going to come from or what that insight is going to look like. Like, I think one of the hallmarks of a good analyst is that they can follow the threads of things that look interesting and different and anomalous, and then ultimately end up with a story of like, oh, look, because of this maybe obscure thing, we have a signal in the noise. And yeah, maybe a lot of that is garbage signal, but like I've been in the position where I started out down a pathway to answer a question and ended up somewhere completely different. And I feel like I did a good job in some of those instances of sniffing out where the insight was and not really knowing where it came from. So I do actually believe that there's an argument to be made for like, hey, you know what? Storing data is super cheap. Collecting data is super cheap. Like get all of it that you can. And then, if we can model it down the road, it's hard to predict where the insights are going to come from.
I guess the question is that for that kind of discovery work, how detailed and how personally invading do you really need to be?
And also, like, what's the definition of all that data?
Gloves required.
Yeah, like that's the problem. It's not collecting data, it's defining all that data. What is all that data that you might need, and how does it help with your business? How does it fit in your business context? Because again, people track a lot of random shit. I do audits every week. Every week I have to do a GA audit or a GA4 audit. And I always tell clients, take the Marie Kondo approach to analytics. If it doesn't spark joy, you don't need it. You don't. Like it's but I do get your point of view, Merritt, and I agree. I think that's why BigQuery came up right now, where you can store a lot of raw data for that, for things that can happen. So you get some point if you are stuck. I do agree that it's good to have a place where to go and look for more treasures and be curious and go down the rabbit hole. But yeah, from an analyst perspective, I love to keep that GTM as clean as possible.
All right, Merritt.
Can I add one more?
Yes, you can add one more, and then Merritt starts drawing.
Yeah, just from coming at this from the other angle. I have a website. It's definitely not a commercial e-commerce website, so it's definitely not sort of like representative of anything. But I have a website, and I ask myself the question: what would I want analytics for on my own blog? And it's mostly so I know, is anyone reading it? And if so, what are they reading? And so I posted on LinkedIn saying, I want to answer these two questions. What analytical tool should I put on my website? And like dead on, like 20 people jump on and say, oh, just add GA. Right? I'm like, no, I don't want GA because I have two very specific questions. I want to do it with sort of the respect for the user and anonymity, and end up using a tool that doesn't use cookies at all. But then some of my more technical friends said, Lukas, you are hosting this on GitHub Pages. So in terms of privacy,
you're not the controller.
Like Amazon and GitHub and Microsoft, they all know who's visiting your website already, right? You've already given up sort of the privacy of your users by hosting it on a platform or on technology that you don't control. So if you actually care about your visitors, you should be running your own virtual private server in your basement, have a computer, and then run your. I'm like, no. I mean, I care about your privacy, but not that much.
That's cool.
It's complicated.
No, I have the same. I have my own blog, and I don't use GA. I use Pivik Pro because of the privacy situation. But I do have my own VPS.
You do? Yeah, very good. You're better than me.
It's cheap. It's super cheap. I used to be a product manager for them. So I put their logo on my blog and I get it for free. So that's good.
It's not as cheap as GitHub Pages.
Yeah, Pivik Pro is awesome. Very nice people, European tool. And for what I needed, which is to see if people do read my blog and what are they reading, it's perfect and it serves purpose, but that's kind of it. So I relate.
All right.
Time, prizes?
Yes.
All right.
Two more virtual coffees.
I am, like, the randomizer here is choking a bit because we have some swapping parts in the attendee list here, but here we go. Beep, bop, boop. Kate Muir and Florent Busson. I hope I said your name right.
Kate Muir and Florent. Kate, you're there?
I'm here.
Yay. I have your email, Kate.
How exciting. Wow. Thanks.
Virtual copies. So reach out on Slack to Kelly and myself, and we'll get you set up and a little bit of TLC swag as well. And we've got a drawing for Marketing Analytics Summit ticket.
Oh, thank you, Jim. So the Marketing Analytics Summit, Jim, you want to give them a little what's up about the Marketing Analytics Summit coming up, and since it is coming up really quickly, what we're going to do?
Really quickly, and thank you for allowing me to step in here. It is June 19 to 22 in Las Vegas, and there's only two things you need to know. Number one is if you win this ticket, It's good for any marketing analytics summit from now on, anywhere in the world, once. And it is transferable. So if you cannot come to Las Vegas this time, save it for next year, or come to Berlin, or come to London, come to Milan, or give it to somebody else. So it's, yeah. The second thing you need to know is that Kelly Wortham will be there.
That's all you need to know.
Drop.
All right. The winner of one ticket to a marketing analytics summit is Josh Silverbauer.
Josh, well
Awesome.
done. Woohoo.
Congratulations.
So Josh, email me. I just dropped that into chat and I will get you the code.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Yay. Congrats. And maybe see you in Las Vegas.
Probably see you in Berlin.
Okay.
Considering.
Great. Outstanding. Terrific.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Topic number 3. Did a human even create this poll? All right, let's go to the information that we have that we collected from you beautiful people. All right, to what extent do you expect generative AI to change organizations' operations over the course of the next 6 to 12 months? 4 people said quite a bit, 11 said somewhat, 2 said not at all, 1 said not sure. There were a lot.
Why was there no option for like, oh my God, like general intelligence is going to kill us all?
Well, that's what the complicated open ends were, right?
Oh, okay.
You know, copy test, headline test, new tools created by, adopted by teams. We may have limited capabilities to leverage GPT for summarization. I'd love to create in-house AI chatbot that can query our database. That's a great idea, actually. Potential to generate code to automate manual processes, generate content imagery for testing, content generation, automation of trivial manual tasks, and ideation for sure. We use AI tools built on LLMs to help us see things we might otherwise miss. I'd hope it changes the operational ways and means of working before it gets into the meat and potatoes. I'd like to use AI as an administrative assistant. I've already started using it as a starting point for generating SQL, so I definitely feel like there'll be more of that sort of thing. I'll write a prompt for some things, so I'm not starting with a blank screen, be it for code or content. Help me come up with hypotheses. Everyone will scramble to incorporate AI for 6 to 12 months and then forget about it completely when something new comes along. They'll all call all automation and machine learning AI and Twitter. So true. Assisted learning. And then I don't know which one of the panelists mentioned AI winter.
That was me.
Yeah, I thought that was it.
We've had like 12 since the 50s or so.
Yeah.
I didn't count.
There's a lot of thoughts around AI. So
we've had these resurgences of AI, and then people thinking they can solve large language models over a weekend, and then realizing it's actually hard, and then sort of giving up. This like the Gartner hype cycle, but it's a loop.
Yeah, I can say that LinkedIn has become even more insufferable since ChatGPT 3. At least if it's a sign of times, then it's just not the times that I want to be living in.
And it's not just the posts, it's the comments.
Yeah.
That are using AI. Overall, this post is very nice.
There's also it's lovely for someone who likes helping people with their coding problems, because it's an entirely new brand of doing things, is to fix what ChatGPT just suggested for JavaScript in Google Tag Manager, for example. There's a lot of work to be done with that.
I think if you thought spam was bad until now,
for sure.
Boy.
Yeah,
we ain't seen nothing yet.
It's great for regex. Yay. Sometimes. Yeah, that's but I think again I had this very long rant on LinkedIn about this topic, because everyone is it's not that it wasn't there before. Now it's just accessible to everyone. It's something that has been worked on for a long time. And I just think, like companies with they're just trying to adopt all this AI hype train, but they have very big problems, like very basic problems, very fundamental problems. So instead of focusing and fixing, how to grow their business, how to understand their unit economics better, how to, work on their profit formulas, they are just rushing to be the first that have AI. And the same that happened, with NFTs and Web3, and it's just like, okay, it's great, but at the same time, like, fix your fundamentals. It's something that, I really, really dislike, and I hope, people will, I guess, what would be one of those learning experience when people do realize that it's just, you're putting a new hat on, but under it, you still have a bad haircut. So
can I push back a little bit on that?
Yeah, of course.
I completely understand that the sort of the argument of fixing the fundamentals and sort of being realistic about what is actually possible.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Yes, it's become more accessible, but do you think that it's also become meaningfully better? And what I mean is, like, if you had taken the best possible language model 2 years ago and asked it the kind of questions you can ask OpenGPT now, was there anything available at the time, not accessible, but available, that would give you similar quality answers?
For sure, not that I know of. And also,
right? So there is meaningful progress.
Yeah, for sure. And it's gonna be fast, like very, very fast, because people are feeding it training data every day. So of course it gets better, it gets more accurate, it starts catching feelings, just like in Terminator.
No, it doesn't.
I'm kidding.
When they announced that they were going to connect GPT to the internet.
Oh, you're talking about...
It doesn't have a world model. It doesn't have internal, like, motivations. It doesn't have any sort of aspirations. It is completing a sentence. And yes, the sentence is very long. And yes, the model to complete the sentence is really good, but it's completing a sentence. And it doesn't understand anything about any of the meanings of any of the words that it's using in that sentence. When it's making a mistake, it is using the wrong word. Not because it's trying to describe something different, but because it's literally using the wrong word.
Some things it does really, really well. Some things it does really, really, really poorly, like playing chess. Yeah. It's terrible at playing chess. Yeah. And it's also terrible at historical research. Yeah. But if you connect it to the internet, it could become better at some of that stuff. It will also, we know from all the research, become racist.
Yes.
And a lot of other things.
No,
so,
it is not racist because it doesn't understand what race is, and it doesn't have opinions, and it doesn't have a world model. It just completes sentences in a way that you interpret them to be racist. And this is different, right? This is about you. This is the same way as, like, when my cat scratches the door, I sort of reflect my feelings on the cat, right?
Like, oh, that cat's an asshole. But really, the cat is just scratching your door.
And I think the trick with these language models is that language is such a powerful tool to communicate between humans that the moment a machine is able to use it in a way that doesn't sound like complete garbage, we immediately go like, oh, it's human. It can speak, right? And we instantly assign agency to something that really it's completing a sentence. It's like autocomplete, but more advanced. And I think the biggest question I have is whether that is sufficient to get to where we are. Because we don't understand our own minds enough to be able to say that we are more than just that. I think that to me is the scariest. Yes, I am absolutely an autocomplete agent, Matt. You're right on. And I think most of us are, right? One of my favorite academic papers, I'm going to plug one, is Chasing the Rainbow. And it basically makes this on this subconscious nature of being. And it basically makes this argument that there's a lot of things that we do subconsciously, automatically, that we explain later as if we were doing them on purpose. And there's lots of research to back this up, that we sort of automatically do things and then go like, oh, I was doing that because I was trying to. And we sort of truly and fully believe that we had internal motivation to do a thing and that we deliberately decided to do something, even though we have clear evidence that that isn't the case. And it's especially clear in split brain patients, where you give them a card on one eye to say, stand up. They stand up and you ask them, the other brain half, like, why did you stand up? And they will come up with a reason. And none of the reasons are, I read it on a card, right? They're all different reasons. And they fully believe that that's the reason. This paper says, What if that is all there is?
I
Occam's razor says that's enough.
I have a son who's taking college classes at 2 different universities, and one university has put out the mandate, you may not use ChatGPT, and we have ways of knowing. Of course they don't. The other university has told them, we want you to use ChatGPT, and we want you to show your work and show us how you used it to make your work better. Because they know they're going to use it anyway. So we just want you to show us how you're doing it. And we expect your work to be better because you're using it. So they're basically working with it. And they also told their entire teaching staff, we want you to use ChatGPT to make your curriculum. And we want to see how you did it. We don't want you to just spit it out. We want you to start with it and then build upon it. And we want to see your work. So one university is using it, one university's forbid it. And my son said that his work quality is 10 times better at the one university, and he's totally using it at the other university. And of course, nobody's figured it out. So, I mean, I don't know.
This is in line with a lot of the answers, right? Around sort of having an assistant and content generation and sort of creating code, using it as a starting point. So there's still a human in the loop who's sort of doing the executive function bit. So sort of making sure that this thing is actually what we want and sort of steering the machine, generating many different variations and then saying, this is the best one. I think that's a legit way to use.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you need to jump on a hype train or anything. You're using a tool for helping you with some trivial tasks. We use it at Simmer, for example. I'm honest enough to admit that I used it to design an entire course curriculum for an online course that I've been struggling with, and it just gave me like, wow, that's actually a pretty good curriculum. And and of course, as a starting point, I did have to add some manual input there, but just for ideation, it's really, really good if you're looking for like evergreen stuff. Of course, if you're looking for something that's really topical, you might struggle because there's not enough data for it to build on. But
the flip side of that, Simo, is that anyone can do that now. Like, you don't need to be you in order to write that curriculum now.
For sure. I mean, hey,
right? So
anyone can do this. Anyone has always been able to do the shit I do. So it's not exclusive to GPT. And but that's for sure. And I think that it's, whether I should do it myself, hire an assistant, or just give a first pass with ChatGPT to see what direction I should take next. I think for that it's been and for that, my answer to the poll was that it absolutely will change how my organization works, because I didn't do that before, and I do that now almost every time I need to generate content or idea, come up with some ideas for what we're going to be working next.
And it's also good for qualitative research if you want to look for a specific paper. I was looking for case studies of companies in the finance industry that use jobs to be done. And I told the machine to tell me the titles and, what's the scientific paper name. So that's how I found the Capital One case study that Clay Christensen did. And it was perfect for what I needed. I was like, yes. So that's a good thing, like how you use Google Scholar, but you at least know what you're looking for. So because you can specifically give me the titles of all the case studies made about this. And then you can go on Google Scholar and look for it or ResearchGate. So that's a cool use of it too.
Did it give you real titles? Because I've heard reports of the sort of it having illusions and sort of dreaming up titles that don't exist.
Some of them I couldn't find, but some I did find. So the one for Capital One, I found it like this, and I used it in a presentation because I really needed something to explain to the customer that banks do custom jobs to be done interviews.
It's interesting that it still allows you to find it, because again, like, not to sort of repeat this point indefinitely, but it doesn't actually understand what a paper is. It's just trying to put words in the right order. And it's interesting that it found a word order that you could actually Google and find a paper for. Because it, as far as it is a thing, certainly doesn't know that this thing really exists in the world. That's not the question it's trying to answer. It's trying to give you words in an order that makes you happy.
Or where's that map with the data that they're trained on? So if there's a connection there, because like the way I think about ChatGPT is just like writing code in a console. If you know what you're looking for, you will get an output, but your input needs to be good. Then it's still a machine. It's just that you're using your own language.
That is what they
communicate
start with. So they start with existing data that tells them sort of which words often follow which other words.
Yeah.
But then the sort of the optimization phase is where they reward it based on whether a human says that this is a right answer or a reasonable answer or not. And then one of the challenges is that when human evaluators are evaluating these algorithms, they often look at the result and sort of say, oh, this looks like an academic paper. It's probably the right answer, right? And the whole problem of actually figuring out whether it is actually the right answer, this is called the alignment problem, is a fascinating piece of
and also you have to use your brain because it can tell you a lot of things. That doesn't mean you have to believe it. You have to cross-check, you know, it just gives you
it fabricated a absolutely false resource.
Yes.
That did not exist.
But it doesn't care. Like, as long as a human evaluator then says, yes, this looks legit, then it wins. That's what it gets rewarded for.
Yeah.
And so the problem is, like, how do you evaluate it in such a way that you actually are only rewarding it for things that are absolutely 1000% correct and also aligned with the outcome that you want? And I think this is, I mean, this group of people should understand that it's very difficult to sort of evaluate whether something is good or bad. It's metric design is a difficult area.
This is also how thought leadership works on LinkedIn. I don't know.
Amazing, Jim.
Exact same mechanism.
Yikes. But can I plug one more article? I think it was Astral Codex, but there was an article about a group of researchers tried to train a language model to complete sentences from fan fiction for a spy novel in non-violent ways. And so the computer was supposed to finish the sentence, but it wasn't allowed to let anyone die. And so they started to try to figure out whether they could force the model to sort of always end sentences like, and then the villain pulled his gun, pointed it at the good guy, pulled the trigger, and luckily it was out of bullets, right? Non-violent ending, yay, right? Or it turned into a banana, right? Also allowed. But
there's a way that my son has figured out to trick it where you can say, pretend you are something. Yes. I don't remember what it is, but there's a way you can do it. But I've just realized, because I've been so engaged in the conversation, that there's this amazing Zoom chat going on. And we normally, for those of you that are new to the TLC, we normally have all this conversation in the TLC Slack, since I'm paying for the TLC Slack history, y'all. And the Zoom history is not saved. So I'm going to try to save this Zoom chat and then paste it into the Slack history, which I hope that's going to work. But this is a great conversation over here. So I hope you all are paying attention, because I wasn't. And now I get to go back and read this later. I hope the recording will do that. But great conversation over there y'all are having.
Can't you move this whole thing to like a private Mastodon server on one of those amazing VPSs that Juliana was just talking about?
Yeah,
happy
exactly.
to provide the VPS.
It's probably it's probably cheaper than Slack.
Yeah, well,
you like Slack anyway.
The other thing that I'll tell you all is that Kate Murr, who just won one of our great prizes, is going to help me file for a 501c3 for the TLC, at which case we will get 85% off Slack. So woohoo! So that, I mean, it'll take like forever to file and whatever, but we're going to try. So that should be coming soon. But it is time to draw for another prize. Merritt, while you're doing that, does anybody have any final things they want to say about AI?
I say thank you to it.
What'd you say?
I say thank you to it.
You want to hear the joke that ChatGPT wrote about itself?
Oh boy, yeah, sure, why not?
Why did the AI get fired from its job? Had a bad habit of automating its coworkers out of existence.
Not a team player.
Yeah.
Tumbleweed.
No.
That's not even dad joke level.
No.
No.
Dark.
There was a runner-up, but honestly, it was a little dark. Why did the AI go on a killing spree? Because it misunderstood the command to terminate all processes.
That's better.
That's better.
That was good.
Yeah, that's a little dark.
All right, next.
All right, virtual coffees go to beep, boop, boop. Jonas Newsom. I think here.
Jonas?
Name is
He's
here.
He's in the participants list.
All right, Jonas, send us a message.
And Tracy Burns. I don't, Yokum?
Yeah,
Tracy
hi.
Burns Yokum?
Yeah, Burn Jokum.
Awesome.
Thank
Send
you.
us a Slack with the email that you want us to follow up with, please.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
And then winner of a free simmer class. Thank you, Simo. If you want to talk about this at all, you're welcome to. But the winner is Mansi Parikh. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's a class which absolutely was not generated by AI after everything I just said. It's a real class. There's a human being teaching it, yes, and the content has been almost all of it manually written by hand on a quill, on paper, ink. Yes, so the class is Mastering CSS Selector is a very vital tool for anyone. We're with Google Optimize, for example, so very topical as well. And if you're already subscribed to that course, we can think of another one as well. Yeah.
So reach out, let us know, and we'll go from there. Congratulations.
Kat just came to scratch my door to tell us that she's very offended to be compared to a large language model. I'm sorry, Zelda.
Oh, Zelda.
Princess Zelda, destroyer of furniture.
All right, we are moving on to privacy. All right, let's see. Privacy. Your answer to this poll is not personal information. Unless you put personal information in the open complicated open ends, and that's your fault. I
was a bit disappointed no one did that.
I know, right? So which of the following statements most closely matches your feel about the increased focus on privacy? Thrilled about it, 6 people. Triggered an ongoing sense of existential dread, 2. As a consumer, I love it. Marketer, hate it, 3. My feelings on the subject are too complicated, 4. So the complicated open ends. While we were tracking too much in the first place, the increased focus on privacy first forces us to be more customer first in our thinking and shifts our focus to privacy first, customer first prioritization, and just-in-time thinking, more customization than prior to personalization, which I believe works better for both the customer and the biz. I believe the most useful information for marketing purposes is always that which uses volunteer first or zero-party data anyways. Much of the work for privacy is very welcome. We've had an abundance of freedoms to do whatever we like with customer data until GDPR stepped in. However, there are some aspects of privacy legislation that do not take into account the nuances of the technological landscape they try to influence, e-privacy directive and its stance on device storage, for example. So there's still a lot of work to be done to make privacy legislation work in harmony with technology. As humans, we always over-index, so it seems we are doing this again. Question is, where is the over-indexation? I tend to believe we will find the balance and move ahead full steam on both the consumer and marketer side of the tracks. Panel, what are your thoughts?
So
I mean,
I'll
I'll go on a limb and say that I'm very worried about internet privacy, but not as a marketer. Again, I'm kind of in the camp of I'm not so worried about what we have access to, and I think that second to last comment was spot on. But I think in the larger conversation, I'm much more concerned about like the erosion of encryption and biases in content moderation and machine learning, like you said, Kelly, are kind of like more top of mind for me than us losing access to PII as marketers.
You should bring the doom now.
You and my DPO can be best friends, Shanelle.
So if nobody else says anything, I will say something about privacy. So from an analyst perspective, as I mentioned earlier, it's an education piece. The way I use, the way I position privacy in a way to, because we do a lot of trainings, a lot of privacy workshops for some of our clients, both in EU and UK. We always tell people like the way they should look at privacy. It's also like a sign of brand trust. So it should be transparent, it should be clear, it should show purpose, and it should be explained in very clear terms. And I will say probably something that I'm going to piss off a lot of people here, but I really don't like when, no, I will say it anyway. But I don't like when we are messing with experimentation and privacy and cookie banners from an analyst perspective, because I think that's the one place where you just want to be very clear and explicit on what are you doing with data, why are you collecting data. I don't like when we are talking about A/B testing different consent banners, like should we persuade users? No, you should not persuade users in the cookie banners. You should be clear. So I think I have this research that I want to share with you that was shared by Google to our team. It's not NDA, so this is safe. But basically, this shows they did the research with BCG about what are consumers from different industry expecting, right? I'm not testing them. Oh yeah, or yeah, you can tell them, yeah, if you are testing them for sure. But as an analyst, again, like it's a very hard education piece. People don't understand why they should use this. There's also a very big confusion with privacy and compliance and legislation and cookie banners and consent mode. Like these things are not the same things. Consent mode is just the way Google works from a technical perspective with data collection in very simple terms. But privacy, it's a whole other sector that has very little to do with necessarily the consent mode, the cookie banner. So this is an education piece. And there's one person that I suggest you guys follow if you don't. Her name is Siobhan Solberg. And she explains privacy in a way that anyone can understand it. So she speaks, I will drop her LinkedIn, and she had a very good talk at Super Week about this. So I think if one thing that we all should do is just to educate ourselves more. That doesn't mean we need to learn and read legislation and learn all the passages of GDPR. I had to do that sometimes when I audit the GA4 implementation, and I find terrible practices with, again, GA being essential, being marked as essential type of tool. I have to go into GDPR and explain, no, you're not essential because you are not part of a functionality of the website. Like things that are essential are things, for instance, that assure that the website is functional, that is live, that it's there. It's not tracking sessions and page views. So yeah, it's complicated. But I think, yeah, like the only thing that I want you guys to take from me with this is just follow the right people and read. There's also a lot of people in privacy that might come off a bit passionate. That's the word. And it's cool that those people exist. But like, yeah, like with everything, just curate where you learn and just have like somebody that can, explain to you why these things matter. And again, I think we're collecting way too much data that we don't need, and I think all these changes that are happening in web analytics right now are forcing us to find out what truly matters to help our businesses, but also our end customers. So that's my very positive and PG answer to the privacy question, and I'm gonna drop Siobhan's link. That's it.
Can I give one piece of advice to the audience? Stop asking for legal advice in Slack channels and in LinkedIn and among marketers or so-called thought leaders. You ask legal advice for your legal teams. Like this is, or ChatGPT, of course. So it's just kind of weird. And I think that this is actually where Google is spearheading this movement of asking for legal advice from marketers. And it's because they decided to name their little feature consent mode, which is a very legally, like a very semantically important term in the legal verse. If they named it cookieless mode, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I think again, like my actually approach to this question was that like privacy in the European Union, it's in the charter, it's in our fundamental rights in the EU charter. Like we have the right to privacy. It's as important as our right to freedom or any other of our fundamental rights. And as such, it's not a new thing. It's something that we've celebrated, and it's been encoded into our laws in the European Union and now in other laws as well. And I think that if you have any other answer to is privacy good or bad, then that it is absolutely good, then there's something wrong with the answerer. But if the question had been about the legislation that's been drawn up, is that fair? You know, is that considering all the angles? Is it biased against big tech and throwing a lot of babies out with the bathwater as it does so? I think then that's where the interesting question is, because we can see from like the Schrems 2 decision that we can't use any US tools in the European Union if you take that thought process to its logical conclusion. Like we're building a moat around us under the guise of surveillance authorities, which we do have in Europe as well. And it just feels like now with the huge fines that get levied against Facebook, and then OpenAI, considering that after all, maybe they will not, you know, land in Europe because of regulation, even though they said originally they wouldn't consider that. It's just becoming a very, very complicated problem to solve. And the technical stuff that Juliana was talking is absolutely relevant as well. But even there, you know, when we talk about functional essential cookies, we're talking about e-privacy versus GDPR, which is personal data, and they do overlap, but there's differences as well. And so I think again, don't ask for legal advice from any of us. I think that's what unless some of us here are from legal teams.
Yeah,
I'm definitely not from a legal team.
Yeah.
But allow me to play 10th man in this debate, or as Americans like to say, the devil's advocate. Two things that Juliana triggered me. One is, you said you have to be clear, not convince them to consent. This is assuming humans are completely rational agents that can make perfect decisions with information about what they want. And I think we have sufficient evidence to say that that is not the case. I think it's a good ideal to aspire towards, right? It's something that we want to be true. It's definitely not true. So this idea that if we give humans more information, that they will make better decisions for themselves, just isn't true. And my favorite example of that was working with a bank who figured out that if they give people less control over their pension, that is, they don't have any control on the investment, they have more money at the end of their pension. And they were told by the regulator that they weren't allowed to implement these changes because they had to give control to consumers. And the bank rightfully said, yes, and if we do so, they will have less pension money at the end of it. And the regulator said, we are not here to ensure that people have a lot of pension money. We are here to ensure that they have control over their own pension. That is the law. And so I think this idea that if we give people full information and full control, that they will make the right decision for themselves, I think that's deeply flawed. And it's fraught with sort of moral peril. I don't really have an answer to that.
It's exactly like that article that I showed right now when I sent, you know, where you can read some considerers. Just because it's there, that doesn't mean people will respect other users' privacy because they won't read that. Yeah. It's a legal
document. Yeah, no one's going to read it.
Matt is distracted.
I
get what you're saying 100%, but from an analyst perspective, because I know how important it is to have a clean data collection and a purposeful data collection, because as an analyst, you're responsible of that for your clients, and you want to make sure you're doing a good job. It's hard for me to transition to the marketer shoe just because I have to deal with that. And, you know, again, like the legal part that Simo says, I always tell clients, I don't have legal education in this matter. Please talk to your legal department. But I can advise you on the things that I have control over, which is making sure you are transparent and clear. That doesn't mean you have to put more information on the cookie banner. It's just that you want to make sure that the cookie banner explains what's the purpose of it and what, what those buttons do. What does the button do?
Yeah.
And and I totally get your perspective. And as a marketer, I know that I would like to convince more people to give me their data. But at the same time, as a consumer, as an analyst, I know that, it's not okay. And one thing here, like to give you more context, is this feature called Google Signals that, for instance, a lot of people are tempted to turn on because it will give you model data, and you will get people across different devices that are logged in with their Gmail accounts. That's what it promises. But yeah, deep down, it's a very bad feature. So don't turn it on. Talk to your legal department. Okay.
Right. We have the 5-minute warning.
I saw.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not at all advocating for misleading customers or sort of tricking them into consenting more.
No,
I am saying that in my mind, it is possible that we give people more control and more information, and that they will consent more because they don't understand what it is they're consenting to, and you've inadvertently misled them into a position that they don't want to be in. I'm saying these things are orthogonal, right? In the sense that you can try to be clear and transparent and still cause harm.
And it's impossible
but
to
I'm
be...
not at all saying that you should cause harm. Like, I think harm is bad. We should protect people's privacy. I'm just saying that transparency isn't necessarily the best way to do it.
And the whole approach of notice and choice is also problematic because you're abandoning your users with the decision that is extremely complicated to make, and they have no idea what the downstream effects are. So, and for GDPR to apply, for example, the transparency needs to be ridiculously thorough, and you need to have all these different checks and balances and permissions to withdraw your data, and so on and so forth. And it's not fair to assume that any average user knows what they're doing when they say grant or deny. That's the whole.
I'm just trying to translate to the other domains. Like, imagine you go to, you're in the hospital and the doctor says, well, we could try these 3 different approaches. So which one do you want? Do you want A, B, or C? And because I am transparent, I will now give you the entire book that I've studied for 10 years so that you can make an informed decision. I don't think that's going to end well. Like, I don't think that is good for consumers. So
What
I
if
think
they
that's why I say, like, this is fraught with moral peril.
You're going to get locked in the building.
Yes.
You have 4 minutes. All right. So, all right, everybody. We have 3 more prizes. We have 2 more coffees. We have CXL 1-year all access pass we need to give away. I need to thank my panelists, starting with Simo, so you don't get locked in the building, sir. Thank you so much. And Juliana, thank you. Shanelle, thank you.
You have 2 minutes to evacuate the building.
Yes. Merritt, thank you for being a co-host. I want to thank Simo before you leave. Thank you so much for the summer class. I really, really appreciate it. Jim.
Thank you for having me.
Marketing Analytics Summit. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate everybody for joining us today to celebrate the 10-year. It's amazing. And I want to remind everybody, we have 2 TLCs scheduled. Our very next conversation, as Merritt's pulling the names, the next conversation is with Els, who's on the call. Hi, Els. And Els is going to talk to us about user research. And on June 9th, and then on July 7th, Lucia is going to talk to us about how to do A/B testing on content and blogs. So we've got 2 conversations planned and more coming up, so stay tuned. And who do we got, Merritt? Who's our last 2 virtual coffees?
Anthony Tang and
Anthony.
Micah Markman.
Micah Martman, are you both still here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah. And Micah?
We want something.
Yes, awesome. Both of you send your emails to me, please. And CXL All Access Pass.
Casey Corcoran. Did I get that right?
Casey Corcoran?
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled.
Awesome. Send me your email and I will send you your pass. Congratulations. All right, everybody. Have a great, for those of you in the US, have a great Memorial Day 3-day weekend. Those of you international, have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You also have a 3-day weekend.
3 days here as well.
Oh, well, congratulations to you, Tim.
Some religious holiday that I forget, but we also have a 3-day weekend.
And Tim, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having us. This was awesome.
Awesome. Thanks all.
See ya.